Hello, everybody. How are you today? Happy Wednesday. Happy Thursday. And who's joining me? My hair, I don't know about you, but when I wash my hair, it goes pretty flat. My hair looks better when it's got a day of dirt. So say hello. Make sure you add StreamYard to your viewing so I can see your comments. Hello, who is that? Say hello. Put your name in there because I can't see your name. And my phone is over there, so I can't even check it. So say hello. Where are you coming in from? Excited to have you here. And what a great topic. Food intolerances. Who's excited for this topic today? I know when I was going through some of those things in my life, I wish I sort of understood how food intolerances show up for us, because our bodies are super smart and they protect us from a lot of things that are happening in our life, right? So talking about stress, when things are getting out of control and we think we may have some sort of intolerance, or I think I talked about like IBS. So whoever's on the chat, and when you're watching the replay, so hi guys, I'm Yvonne. We have some beautiful, lovely new people in the group. So welcome everyone. When you're watching, just pop in the comments, hashtag replay if you're watching the replay. And if you are on live with me, I would love for you to share with me what kind of intolerances have you experienced. Pop it in the chat for me. Like, have you had lactose, stomach pain, bloating, gas, which is your nicer word of fluctuance, diarrhea, even constipation, rashes, hives, ulcers, headaches? Have you had any of these? And pop it in the chat, please. Because I know I'm going to count how many of these I've had. I think I said this on my thing. I've had the stomach pain, I've had bloating, I've had gas, I've had the diarrhea, I've had the constipation, I had irritable bowel syndrome, which is IBS. I had a rash. I didn't have hives. I got ulcers in my mouth. So that is 8. I've had 8 symptoms from food intolerances that I didn't know were relative to food, but I also know that it was actually more relevant to how and what was going on in my life. So what have you felt? Most of the above. And who is that? I'm going to grab my phone because I can't see it on Facebook, so I apologize. One sec. Yeah, gluten. Yep, I had gluten too. Sorry, that wasn't on my list. Gluten's another one. And it's a choice, right? Like I can still have gluten, but I know how I feel. I feel better not with gluten. Too much gluten comes back, right? Because at the end of the day, wheat is grown so different now. Back in the day, let's talk about back in the day, where back the farmers, the wheat was grown really short and stocky. And now what they've done, they've added a protein. So it's a protein that has been added to wheat, which is gluten, to make it grow faster and larger. So wheat now is tall and it blows around. Sorry, I think it's the other way around. I think that was the way it was a way back. And now it's shorter and fuller because they've added a protein called gluten to the wheat to make it grow faster. And that protein is what people are having intolerances to. Does that make sense? And dairy. And again, with dairy. So as we age, like we're not meant to have dairy. Do you know that? Like dairy is a Western, it's changed and evolved probably again, the way they manufacture and make things. But dairy, especially milk, like someone drinking milk, we're not meant to have that as adults. Even as babies, they said the mom's milk is good, but not to have real milk. It's been this marketing thing, obviously, that they've done. But how dairy shows up in constipation. It shows up in our nasal, right? So feeling really full around here. You can feel maybe that's where the headaches come from. And you just got a lot more oh, what is it called? I can see the word and it's just not coming to me. But it blocks you, right? It's congestion. And that's what happens with dairy. And are those kind of the symptoms that you were having with dairy? It can give gut problem too. So going back is into the gut, how it reacts to us, and it always shows up in our gut. I'm just going onto my Facebook so I can see who's on. Hi, Liza. Is it Liza? Hopefully I'm saying that right, Liza. Hi, Liza. Is it Liza? Hopefully I'm saying that right. And Sherry, great to have you. Nice to see you, ladies. So, yes, exactly, right? And so I want you to ask yourself, so what has been going on in your life that has changed? What, there's always a reason when something all of a sudden becomes a problem in our eating. But it's also a sign as we're aging that sometimes we have to listen to our body. There you go. Thyroid issues. Yeah. Right. So, but again, the thyroid issues come back into sometimes the stress levels that we're having and how we deal with things. And then when something isn't working right, it ends up going over to something else. Not always, but it can be, because I know thyroid is a symptom and is hereditary, I believe. So I know my grandmother had an overactive thyroid. But it's the way we look after our body. It's the environment that we're in. And food intolerances are affected from our environment. Makes sense? So when we are rushing around, not sleeping, not having enough water, eating the wrong foods or too many of one food group, right? So the gluten comes from the compound of carbohydrates, and usually the white ones, right? So again, if you're having too much of the white carbs, this is why you become intolerant, because of the way it's manufactured, the extra protein in there, and it goes to sugar, right? It's a higher end of sugar. That's why we always recommend your low GI carbs, something that breaks down, that has the brown rice in it. So brown rice, multigrain bread, sourdough, I think sourdough is still up there in the white breads, but your rye breads, your seeded breads, quinoa, sweet potato, these are different types of carbs that are better for you, that give you the same thing with being that they are absorbed in a smaller way in your body, so not giving you that shoot of sugar. Okay, it's better nutrients for you. They're more filling. They have fiber in them. And they're better for you at the end of the day because of how they're made and how they're not as processed. So I want to talk about bread for a minute when we look at bread and how it affects us. So there are different ways when the bread is being baked. Okay. So it's normal bread. There's all these different layers. Okay. And I believe that sourdough bread has the most time cooking. All right. I don't know the different ones, all of the ones in the middle, but there are different stages. And what I do know is that if you are enjoying bread, right, and you still want to have some. The better types of bread are the ones that haven't had as much, I guess, cooking time and less of the gluten. And do you know what those are? Pop in the chat. Do you have any idea? Is this brand new information for you? Because I loved bread. Bread was my thing. I was a breadaholic and eating too much of the wrong kind of bread. So, do you have any information? Do you understand how bread is made? Anybody gonna? Yes! Who is that? Is that you, Sherry? I would think that it would be you, Sherry. No, Liza, good on you. That's right. Rye and spelt. Rye and spelt bread are down at the bottom. Right? That's how they have less baking time and less protein to formulate the higher gluten effect. So if you are choosing and want to still have some bread, you want to be going for the rye and the spelt, and they're a great combination together. A lot of times you'll find if you go to an actual bakery where they bake the bread, you'll find that it's a lot of the times they do a spelt rye bread. So there's a reason for that, right? Spelt is an alternative type of bread that doesn't have gluten in it, right? Spelt is you can buy spelt pasta because it doesn't have the gluten. So when people think that they have they can't eat bread, right? Like I think you said that you're gluten intolerant. It's actually how it's formulated, because spelt bread just has less of it, but it still has some gluten. And I used to eat spelt bread all the time. When I went to Canada, the bread that I liked having here, which is more of a seeded and it doesn't have the gluten in it, I couldn't get over there. So I always go to rye. It's easy to digest and it's okay. It doesn't give me any side effects of the bloating, the gluten, the gas, and so on and so on. Okay. So these are the things that are super important, right? So food intolerances, when we think that we have an allergy to something, it might not be that. It can be stuff that's going on. So over time in my life, I was in and out of having dairy. I was gluten-free all the way. I couldn't have even sugar, like wine. I don't really do sugar, but for me, it would be wine or chocolate, how it affects me. What else have I had? And here's a really good one. Okay. So there was a stage, and I remember my skin broke out like I had acne. I've never had acne, didn't have it growing up. And I don't know, I was obviously in I think maybe my late 40s. Yeah, I think I was. I was in my late 40s, and my skin was horrific. Ladies, it was disgusting, right? Like if you've had acne, you know how awful that feels, and trying to cover it up. And I couldn't even cover it up because they were bigger and they were like welts, but it was awful. Anyway, and I remember going, thinking it was hormonal because they talk about, yes, it's probably menopause. And again, see how this stuff gets changed, that is always blaming something. It wasn't. It was my gut, and it was the stress that was going on in my life, and it was coming out and showing up in my skin and my body. Our body is the smartest thing we know, but we don't listen to it. So listening to it and having this and seeing the signs is really important. Even my dog. Okay, here we go. I'm going to just share a little story about my dog. My dog can't speak to me, but she was showing signs that she was hurt. So when we would walk, she was pulling to sniff, and she's really strong. So it's like, whoa, right? I was getting pulled, and I'd get a little cranky because it was like, oh my gosh, Sasha, stop pulling. But her leg was sore. And last night, we had gone for only a little walk because it was time poor, and there was other things going on. So I did a small walk in the morning, and I took her out for a small walk in the afternoon. And it was more of a smelling walk for her. I just let her, but I did try to have a walk. And we came home. I finished my dinner. I said, come on, Sash, we're going to bed. And she couldn't walk, right? I was like, oh my God, she wasn't putting any weight on that front shoulder of hers. And she was like, I was seriously really worried again, because she had done this, I would say 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks ago, this had happened, but I had kept her home, did the icing, did all this stuff. But she was showing me signs. I'm sharing this because she was showing me signs, but I was too busy to see the signs, and I wasn't listening to her, and her leg was sore. So anyway, long story short, I mean, I called the emergency vet. There wasn't one in where I live, and they're like under an hour away, but I had a chat with them, and I thought, I had a feeling what it was. And I just took my dog to the vet first thing, showed up, no appointment. And, the vet was great. He just said, yeah, she's getting older and it's probably a little strained. So she's back, back doing the things I did before with her to rest. And she's just getting a bit older, and I'm wanting her to still be young. I actually forgot how old she was. So I thought she was a year younger, see how life can spin out for us, and we lose track. We don't pay attention. We're just on this momentum. And I want to stop you right now, because what is coming to us right now? We've got Thanksgiving, then we're leaving into the Christmas holiday period. And then we've got Christmas parties, then we're going to, and then we're doing our own Christmas. See how this, all of a sudden we can go into this go, and these things are going to start showing up for you. So I want to stop you. I want you to go, breathe. Self-care. Stop. And it's hard to do. Does that make sense? Is this stuff making sense? So make sure, if you are listening to the replay, comment replay, and let me know what intolerances have been showing up for you. And then I want you to just think about what is happening in your life and how long, what has changed, what is piling up on you. I was talking to, I have a new client, and we were talking about stress. And I asked her, I said, do you have stress in your life? Sorry, I'm just catching some of the things here. Yes. Great. Great. Glad it's making sense. And I asked her what kind of, she's a CEO, runs a business, and she's a CEO of it. So I know what that means. I know what that looks like. I said, how's your stress level? She goes, yeah, it's pretty good, but she's been one to be able to just stack it. And I said, I get it. I said, I think you're just stacking stress on top of stress. I was a stacker. I learned how to stack stress. Hence why I really feel, I know I'm an expert in stress, because I've had it in most of my life. How I could just keep adapting and pivoting and adding it on. And hence why it was showing up in my life, showing up in my body. I was getting injuries from running constantly, skin breaking out, intolerances, all these stresses that were in my life on a personal level. But I never wanted to look at it, and I didn't stop to want to look at it, or just didn't, because I was too busy just doing the thing, right? Make sense? So what is the option to help our body? Rest and taking time for yourself and breathing. I mean, seriously, breathing. I think I did an email, and I popped in the boho, and I don't know which email that was for. And I talked about meditation, because meditation is so important, especially with how our lives are spinning all the time. And starting even with 5 minutes of in the morning or in the afternoon, I find morning, as women, we just get so busy. The afternoon, we're done. So doing this in the morning and breathing and listening to our body and calming down that nervous energy and our nervous system will help calm you down for everything else to not turn your gut health and our adrenals, because it's our adrenals that will start to get affected. Our adrenals start fatiguing, and this is the last resource of our energy. And when our adrenals are shut down, can you see how everything else then starts to trying to fix itself? Because that's what our body does. It's like something's broken, and it'll figure out a way to make sure that you can still do whatever that thing is doing. I like to relate this in my hip replacement because you can sort of see how smart our body is. So when I was pulling up sore in my running, I was still able to run, but I started shifting the muscles that were running. So my hamstring wasn't working as well. So my psoas started doing more work, and my hip flexor, they were getting so tight. I just had to overstretch and stretch and stretch and stretch. And this is how our body keeps us going. And it's the same with our inside, in our eating, in our gut health, in our adrenals, to just keep going until you end up in the hospital with a serious health issue, diabetes, heart attack, thyroid issues, even cancer, because we're not listening to our body and calming down and listening and going inward. So it's important, to we get one body, one health, being as healthy as possible, to live as long as possible, doing those amazing things that we want, right? The vision of where you're going, to look after your health, to have longevity. Yeah? How's that resonating? Just going to go back and see if there's any comments that I haven't seen, because it doesn't show up for me.
I think that it would be you, Sherry. That's right. Rye and spelt. Rye and spelt. Just going to go back and see if there's any comments.
So I'm good. I see everybody that's there. All right. So what have you learned from today? What has this brought up for you today? Is somebody brave enough to make a comment about something maybe that has happened that you need to do, and maybe do a little check-in on yourself? If it's maybe boundaries with work, boundaries with loved ones, boundaries with yourself, boundaries show up in so many ways. Friends. I was watching a show. Has anybody watched the doctor show, the hospital show? See my brain. I'm really tired today. New Hampshire, is it New Hampshire? The show, Amsterdam, something like that. What's that show called? The doctor show, the hospital show. New Amsterdam, I think it is. It's the hospital done in New York City, and it was really interesting because I actually put it on sometimes just for noise, right? When you live alone, it's kind of like the thing that single people do. We just put the television on, so there's like, you feel like you have a company in your house. And I do it. I put it on sometimes in the morning when I'm in bed. Sometimes I don't, but sometimes I normally do. Even if I mute it, it's just on. And this morning I was actually, because I didn't run, I was tired, and I knew my body just needed some rest. And probably Sasha, the worry, see, kids even, right? Worry. She's my fur baby. I'm worried about her. I got her on the bed last night. I tucked her in. I had a blanket on her and everything, making sure she's cozy. So anyway, I had the show on, and it was a really interesting part in the show because he was a therapist, but there was another therapist there, and they were talking about the signs that we do and the things that we change in our life. And if we can pay attention, the signs are always there in everything we do. From maybe a friend that maybe shouldn't be, maybe you need a better boundary about family members. And Christmas brings a lot of this stuff up, right? Christmas is a real big thing. A lot of families argue, a lot of stress around Christmas, right? We're all together, we love our families. And this can change us. Yeah. There you go. Work. Yeah. Yeah. Looking after yourself. Love that, Liza. Love that. Yeah, making time for your eating and exercising, super important, because that is the only thing you can control. The only thing you can control is what you do. So you can't blame anybody. You can't, because you have control of your life. You have control of everything you do. So great. I love boundaries. I didn't have any. This was one of the biggest things that I had to learn from my divorce. I had no boundaries in my life prior to that. Didn't even know what they were really. I did. I think I had them before I got married. I was really strong and I had them. But then all of a sudden I started just accommodating, right? Giving to all of a sudden I had no idea who I was anymore. And then so since then I had to refine that to be the person that I wanted to be, because I couldn't be the person I wanted to be in my marriage, right? This is where that story was going with the show. I wasn't able to be who I wanted to be. I was controlled. So my body was showing up in the stress in my life in other ways, in my food and gluten-free and all that other stuff was unfolding. Yeah. Such a great story, such a great, what I've learned. No regrets here, right? We learn from everything. Life, we go down a road that happens, that we change and we evolve. As long as you are learning, you are growing. Yeah? How's that sound? I am so excited this topic. I could talk about this topic forever, okay? And I've been working on some really great stuff coming up, guys. So stay tuned. They've got some really amazing things coming up. So excited. Everyone's going to love it, okay? So thanks, Liza. I'm glad it's making sense to you. And it's stuff that we're educating ourselves on. And, just know I hear you. I see you, and it's not your fault. Like things just happen sometimes, and education and out there on Mr. Google, it's really hard to know. And as long as you keep, forgiving and moving on, that is just the best thing that we can do as people, right? Everyone's trying their best. No judgment here. We're all trying our best every day, showing up in the world, doing our best. You guys are here today, and I'm so grateful. Sorry, you can hear, I got tiles being fixed. Pounding away. So thank you so much for being here today and showing up today. It's been amazing having you here. And I love talking, like I said, on these areas. They are so important. So important. So thank you for your time. Remember, #replay. And I want you to put in your intolerance for me in this. When you watch this, what have you learned and what have you been struggling with, right? Those intolerances are real. We feel them. It's not in our mind. We feel every one of those intolerances when we go through them. And that IBS was a horrible one to have. I had it for years and years and years. You're very welcome. So great to have you here. Great. Love. I'm great you enjoyed the topic. So thank you. So everyone, just keep being you, keep moving forward, tapping in, seeing what you can, learning from what I'm sharing. And like I said, we've got, oh gosh, I think we're getting close to 6 weeks till Christmas. It's hard to say it. And like I said, I've got 2 big events coming up. So I'm really excited. So stay posted, stay in tune, and keep doing you, keep being you. All right. Just keep working. And remember, today's topic is about give yourself some self-care and stop and try to take that 5 minutes in the morning to breathe. Sit and breathe. All right. See you, ladies. Lovely having you here.